Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions, my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the new Quantum Leap Revival, Season 2, Episode 10, The Family Treasure. The episode's description reads as follows. A cursed treasure hunt draws Ben to Mexico in 1953, putting him between two estranged siblings struggling with their late father's legacy, as they navigate a series of lethal obstacles. Ben finds the real challenge lies in repairing this broken family's bond. The episode was directed by Jude Wang, and the episode was written by Shakina. This is her second effort, the first being Let Them Play, which she also directed. She did not direct this time. Before we go any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you didn't watch the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're on the platforms, one of the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please subscribe. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to our channel. All right, Stacie, we have plenty of things to talk about today.
Plenty of things. We are also recording a lot of things today. So it's going to be a long day for us.
Yes, indeed. So I have shout-outs. There were 2 birthdays last week that I missed. One was your sister, Alicia.
Yep.
Happy birthday to Alicia. Belated, of course. And Carla Mack, the legendary voice actress and future girlfriend of me, of course. So, yeah, and she assures me that I am not actually in the doghouse for forgetting her birthday.
And when was her birthday?
It was last Tuesday.
Literally, when we were recording.
Literally the day that we were recording.
Well, that is a missed opportunity.
It is indeed.
So, happy belated birthday, Carla.
And we got a birthday for Raymond Lee, who plays Ben in this series.
Yes.
Which was, he was born on February 5th. At least that's what Internet Movie Database says.
Yes. He was born February 5th, 1987, according to the internet.
Wow. I'm actually older than Ben Song. What do you know? All right. We had some sad announcements. One, Carl Weathers. He played Apollo in the Rocky movies. He was also in plenty of Arnold Schwarzenegger action movies back in the day. He died on February 1st. And then there's Hinton Battle, who played Thames in the original series. He was the hologram for Zoe in the Evil Leaper episode. The last one, actually. And he actually died on January 30th this year. So that's that. And we have some shout-outs. Hold on a second. I'm going to take a sip of coffee because my voice is drying out. All right. Super Mario Brothers commented that they were the first to comment.
Yay!
I don't know if you know anything about YouTube culture.
And this is on our off-the-cuff video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, usually when you're the first to comment, you say, "Oh, I'm first." And then he also said, "Oh, boy."
Oh, boy.
And in our case, being the first to comment is not really that much of a challenge.
Yeah.
But still, congratulations. I believe this is his first time commenting.
Oh, welcome to the channel.
Yes. Brandon says he would take Ben and Hannah over Addison and Tom any day. That was your opinion. That's my opinion.
I have a lot to say about that today.
Oh, believe me too. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the general consensus. But we will get into that later. Okay, so Amanda, what in the world is going on?
Oh, I think we're getting an oil delivery.
Oh,
We've got some weird background noise, folks. Sorry about that. We record in my basement, and there's somebody standing outside the window. I think our oil tank is being filled.
All right, well, hopefully that sound is not too obnoxious. And how long does that usually go on for?
Just a minute.
Okay. So, Amanda gives a true confession. Her reaction to seeing Hannah married with a child was great, leaving Ben with no motivation to go home or otherwise stick himself back in time somewhere. So, she's wondering if this series is going to end with Ben and Sam meeting and both bouncing around for the rest of their lives. Okay, so based on comments from Scott Bakula that he said recently that we witnessed at the Q&A. Hey, by the way, we met Scott Bakula over the weekend, and we're going to have a video about that later on.
That video will be out tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, based on his comments, he has zero interest in returning to this series. So it's highly unlikely that Ben and Sam are going to meet.
Yeah,
unless
it's not impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not impossible.
I'm sure if they threw enough money at him, that Bakula would return for something.
I don't think it's specifically about money, but you know, if they present the story just the right way, it has to be just the right thing to catch him. And I think it's a really, really long shot, but I'm not going to say never.
Right. No, I'm not going to say never either. I'm still going to hold out hope. but I'm also going under the assumption that it's never going to happen.
And it could also happen in, a movie.
Right. That's what Deborah Pratt wants.
Yeah, Deborah Pratt wants to do a movie. It's possible. Mm-hmm. He's holding out for that, too, and that's the reason he's refusing to come to this show, is to do a movie. And you know what? Maybe she can bring Ben Song into the movie, too. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
We'll have to see how the future plays out. We don't have Ziggy to tell us.
Yes, unfortunately not. Not that Ziggy's ever any help anyway.
Right.
But, okay, so she mentions that her son being Rachel's boss is an intriguing thought. That's still possible even after this episode aired.
I believe so, yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. There's a possibility that the actions of the series prevents the creation of Lothos. Okay, maybe. So let's see. What else did she say? Eventually found gems. Oh, she wants to know if the brother died in the original timeline. If Jeffrey ended up finding the diamonds in the teddy bears eventually. And yeah, sure, possibly. Who knows?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened to those diamonds?
Mm-hmm.
I have the same question this week.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So Addison should have researched Hannah's full story by now. Yes. That's also an opinion shared by Kelly M, who also, I'll get to her in a moment. But, and if not Addison, then probably Ian should have at least investigated that. Yeah. We pretty much thoroughly agree that, her history should have been discovered.
Yeah. And tracked.
Yes, exactly. So that we know changes when Ben is around or not around. So, Kelly, she knew Hannah was going to be in the episode based on the preview that I didn't watch after Nomads. She was surprised by how it happened, like you were. She doesn't really care about Addison and Tom either. Like I said, that's pretty much the consensus at this point. Yeah, she said that, like, when they were getting engaged, she was like, oh, okay, are we supposed to be happy about this? I pretty much...
Yeah.
I pretty much do not care at all. I'm at the point where, okay, you made me not hate Tom. Congratulations on that. But unlike, like This Is Us, they never made me care about Kate and Philip in that series. Mm-hmm. They didn't make me like Philip, so that was a total failure on their part in that. I never really liked Philip. They didn't successfully win me over with him at all. So, yeah, they did it one step better. They made me not hate Tom. That's congratulations. But I don't care about them.
Yeah.
I don't care about their storyline.
I have no problems with Addison. I have no problems with Tom.
Yeah.
I don't care what's happening with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where I'm at.
The way they presented them in the last couple episodes has not been particularly good. Okay, so we'll certainly get to that as we go. Yeah, she also agrees that Hannah should have known more. I mean, they should have known more about Hannah.
Yeah.
And also, she said that we met Scott Bakula. How cool is that?
How cool is that?
Pretty damn cool.
We'll have a lot to say about that in tomorrow's episode coming out. And
we have Ice Cube's brother, who, this is a last-minute comment. I'm actually kind of curious about the screen name. Is he actually Ice Cube's brother? Because if so, I'd be fully willing to talk to Ice Cube. Get him on the channel, do an interview. I mean, he doesn't relate to anything that we do, but still, it'd be cool to talk to him. I don't think he actually is, but you never know. If you're listening, let me know. So he brings up that the original series had Sam having a kid as well. And sure, that would be a recycled plot point to do it again in the series, but why not? I already covered my feelings about that last week. I don't really want that.
On that note, as I suspected, the internet has been full of people speculating that Jeffrey is Ben's child, or that Jeffrey was conceived while Ben was in whatever host that was, whose name I don't have.
The math does
not add up, and I've seen people really fight for it. But the fact of the matter is, we do have a specific date that Cairo took, not a specific date, but a specific month that Cairo took place, which was May of 1961. So it doesn't work. Even if Jeffrey turned 8 tomorrow, because that was another argument, is we don't know how close to 8 he is. Even if he turned 8 tomorrow, that would still leave, because there's 8 years and 11 months between the two leaps.
Yeah.
So even if he turned 8 tomorrow, that leaves 11 months.
Right.
You cannot be pregnant for 11 months. Well, and that's rounding everything the farthest you can round it.
Right.
In that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So, no. No.
Okay, so we have Stacie's official opinion,
No.
No.
Okay. No.
All right, and that is also my official opinion. Even if the math, I would still not love this idea for reasons I stated last week. Okay. He said something about Hannah possibly creating the idea for Quantum Leap that Sam ended up starting. No, I don't think so. But he also thinks his son being the engineer that worked on the DARPA project is possible. Yeah, that's certainly possible.
Something is up with the DARPA project, right?
Yes, yep. I mean, it has to be. Somehow it connects to all these stories that are going on. All right, so Stacie, you have some background stuff?
I've got some stuff that came out from the Quantum Leap Writers Room on Twitter X as the episode aired, so we'll share some of that. And this is, of course, again, in regards to Off the Cuff. They had to say that David Clayton Rogers and Josh Dean, who both starred in the episode, worked on Blind Spot with showrunner Martin Gero.
Oh, okay.
Gero.
Yes.
Who also the writer of that episode, Alex Berger. So
right.
They all worked together before.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome. And they did mean the whole BB gun to be a homage to A Christmas Story. I don't think anybody actually doubted that, but they confirmed they did that on purpose.
That was something that Carla said to me, that she liked that reference.
Yeah. They actually filmed the bus scenes on a real 1970s Greyhound bus.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that was no movie magic. That was an actual appropriate aged bus that they filmed that on. And the gas station scenes was actually a redress of the spot they used for the pizza joint in Family Style, which was Deborah Pratt's last directed episode.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And let's see. Oh, this is one I actually need to go back and watch that episode again because I missed this. And that is that if you look at Hannah's office, which is the room where she was trying to kiss him in where the turbine thing is.
Yes. That was certainly controversial in the Facebook group.
And it says if you look around that office, you can see mementos of all of her adventures with Ben that office. She has mementos from Egypt, Princeton, and from Starlight, New Mexico. And there's also a toy yo-yo being seen in that scene.
Cool.
So references to all of the Ben and Hannah isms.
Aw, how adorable.
Yeah. And that's what they had to say.
All right. So, Stacie, your overall thoughts on this week's episode.
All right. Shifting to this week. Okay. What are we talking about? Family Treasure.
Yes.
I liked this episode.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I thought it all came together. Throughout my first watch, I had issues. I was like, I don't understand what's happening. Why are we looking if the dad already found the treasure to make these clues, why didn't he take the treasure?
Right.
And if he didn't find the treasure, where are these clues supposed to get us?
Right.
And I was, having a rough time with this, but then it all came together once we got to the end, and I was like, okay, I get it now. It makes sense after watching it. I thought we did a good job of telling, a fun adventure story, treasure hunting. I think everyone did a great job of the acting in this episode, and we obviously know that Shakina was trying to tell a story here.
Yes.
As far as talking about the history of transgender individuals, and specifically we get into the concept of non-binary in this episode, and I think she did a really great job.
Haters
can be really hard, I'm sure, to try and put that into context of a story and make it feel like Quantum Leap.
Right.
And I know we were pretty critical of the way that she did that in Let Them Play. We loved the episode. We loved the story that she told. But if I recall, both of us had the opinion that it didn't really feel like a Quantum Leap episode. Right. Because
in that we kind of wondered exactly what did Ben change in that episode.
Right. It was a great episode, but it didn't feel Quantum Leapy to us. And I think that was fixed in this episode. I think this felt like a really good Quantum Leap episode, as well as telling that story that she wanted to tell.
Now, haters, which there are going to be plenty of, are going to say that, oh, this is 1950s, this wasn't a thing back then. Except for the fact that it was.
It was.
People like this existed back then.
Right.
Was it talked about it in this specific way? No. Probably not.
Did this language exist?
Yeah.
Not really.
No, but Ben basically introduces it, which is something that you commented might be a little bit funny.
I think it's going to be challenging for this family if they try holding on to these concepts and words in a larger scale outside of themselves. But we'll talk about that.
Right.
But yeah, I think overall it was a really good episode, and it was fun. I do have a couple complaints.
All right.
Mainly being we did not get a date.
Oh, yes, no date at all.
In fact, I couldn't even find anywhere in the episode where they mentioned the year 1953.
Other than in the episode description.
It's in the episode description. We were told ahead of time we're in 1953. Within the context of the episode, I could not find a single reference to 1953.
Yeah.
And I really looked. So it's possible I missed it. Did you?
I didn't hear a specific year. I do remember Ian at one point being like, oh, we're a transgender masculine person in the 50s.
Right.
But that's as close as we got.
Ian said 1950s.
Yeah.
That is the only date I saw or heard in the episode itself. Now, we were told, right in the episode description, 1953. So that exists.
Right.
That canonizes the date, the year anyways, but it sucks for me that we're not putting it in the episode.
Right.
Like, I want specific dates.
Right.
And
yeah,
I hate
absolutely.
that we just get years sometimes. And this time we didn't even get the year. And I even, I messaged Brian Green at Al's place. And I was like, did I miss this? Did they show this date somewhere? Because, he's really, really keeps track of the dates, keeps, a whole timeline of all the leaps. And he said, yeah, no, I didn't see it anywhere.
By the way, how cool is it that we're now just able to message Brian Green from AlsPlace.com?
I know, right?
I mean, on top of all the other stuff, cool stuff that has happened in relatively recent times, we're now regularly able to message Brian Green from AlsPlace.com. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we commiserated our dislike of not having dates in the show.
Oh, and by the way, you were actually on a podcast with Brian Green recently. We didn't even bring that up.
I was. So for Off the Cuff, I guest hosted on the Fandom Entanglement podcast, and Brian Green is on that show as well. So I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to chat with him, and that's fun. And that episode is available on YouTube. We'll go ahead and add the link to that down in the description of this video. Just got to remember to actually do that.
Right.
And the other thing that we didn't get is something, well, okay, two more things that are kind of become general things happening in the new series that I don't love. And one is we aren't getting mirror images all the time.
Right.
A lot of times we're just getting a driver's ID picture. And in this case, the only image we got of Nadia, which is Ben's host, was like the family portrait. There's a family portrait on the wall of the whole family. And like, okay, there's Nadia in there, but we never got like a reflection of any sort. Right. And I don't like that. I want there to be a background actor cast in these roles, and I want to see them. So that makes me a little sad. And then, of course, the other thing that those of us who are such big fans of the original series dislike is that we're not getting leap outs. Yes. And we're at the point where we're not getting them at all now. I did hear that complaint quite a bit about last week. Yeah. Specifically. It's been a long time since we've had one, I think. And it makes me sad. Why are we just not doing that? Like it's almost like they just cut it out altogether and they don't want to deal with it anymore. But that's certain things that make Quantum Leap, you know? Right. And I do love this show. And I understand a lot of people who are diehard fans of the original can't get behind this show. And I've always stuck with that classic, Al line, right? About how Al loves Tina differently than he loved Beth. Right. And that's how I feel about this. I love Quantum Leap 2022 differently than I love Quantum Leap 1989. Right, yeah. I love them differently. They're different shows, and that's okay. They're very much different. But given that it's a continuation, given that we're constantly referencing Sam and Al, and we've got Beth, and we've got even the Evil Leapers have been mentioned by name, like on the screen in text, I want certain elements to make it feel Quantum Leapy. Yes, I feel you. And I feel like we're pulling more away from them than adding more in, and it just makes me a little sad. I got you. But we don't have much control over any of that, so it is what it is. Yeah. Well, yeah, I too enjoyed this episode. I did not like the Tom and Addison stuff in this episode. We aren't getting into her head enough to even know what's going on. And you know what? I think I'm going to save my thoughts on that when we get there. But yeah, I have some thoughts and you have some thoughts, and it just, I don't really particularly love what they've done the past couple episodes with this. In this episode, it was taking up a lot of space it didn't need to take up. Right. And I mean,
I'm not here to watch Tom and Addison's relationship. I don't care.
Right.
I'm here to watch the lead
Especially because
story.
their relationship isn't moving forward in a nice, fun progression.
Mm-hmm.
They're really all over the place.
Yes.
And
yes. It's yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, it's really particularly bad in this episode specifically. We'll get there.
Okay.
But
so yesterday on Monday, the 5th, 3 clips from this episode were released publicly.
Ah, yes.
So that was fun. I feel like NBC is really trying in this moment in time to get viewers.
Yeah, which is good because
the
ratings for the previous episode were not good.
The ratings for off the cuff, the live ratings anyways, were not good. I did not see the plus 3 and 5 ratings. I don't know if it picked anything up in that. And obviously the Peacock ratings are private. So unless NBC specifically shares that information, we're not going to be able to see the Peacock ratings. But the live ratings took a huge dive. And there are very understandable reasons for that. There was a month hiatus.
Yep. And
not super heavy advertising to let people know that the show is coming back. I mean, there was some.
Right.
But the casual viewer, I know a lot of people I saw missed that it was even on. They saw the next day like, oh, wait, what? It came back? They didn't even know. Plus, with the month hiatus, we had a day of the week change and a time change. Going from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. is a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So even a lot of people who maybe would have watched it live, who watched live at 8 p.m. at the beginning of the season, aren't up till 11 p.m. to watch this show.
I can tell you that I am not one of those people up to 11 o'clock.
Right. So a lot of people probably shifted from live to Peacock viewing who maybe did watch the earlier part of this season live because it had moved to an earlier time slot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a lot of factors that come into play, and it's not necessarily like the worst thing ever because I know they do care about the Peacock numbers a lot.
Yeah.
But it does make our chance for renewal feel a little shakier when we see such a steep cut in ratings.
Yes.
So I really hope that this episode gets better ratings. Of course, we're recording earlier in the day on Tuesday. So it's a little late for us to implore that you watch this live, but I will be all over my socials today begging people to turn the television on tonight. Even if you're not staying up, just turn it on and leave it on when you go to bed. Just leave it on. We need some ratings, a ratings jump.
Yes.
And it makes me a little scared, even though I totally support this episode. And I love that they are not caring about the haters and not catering to them by avoiding this type of story.
Mm-hmm.
It does make me a little nervous that as we're coming off of that ratings decline, that this is where we're going. And I know we're going to have such a huge backlash of haters at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Trying to drown out any public or positive messages that we have to say.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And I just feel like
regardless.
it's kind of a bad time for that when we're in such a low dip of ratings at that exact moment. So
I don't know, like a bunch of people talking about the show, positively or negatively, could definitely draw attention to the show.
Right.
The show needs.
Right.
So.
And you know what? Ratings don't care if you're watching because you love it or if you're watching because you hate it.
Right.
Ratings are just, do you have the show on? Great.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if people want to hate watch something, you're still giving the show ratings.
Right.
And if you're hashtagging the show, you're still giving the show a boost.
Right.
But when you say ridiculously hateful and derogatory things, which is what I know is coming after this episode by, the people that we're not giving agency to, beyond what I'm saying right now. And that is, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame to see that and to have to navigate that. I messaged Shakina after watching this episode, and I just wanted to tell her, I thought it was really great. I thought she did a wonderful job, and I just wanted to show her some positivity before that hatred flies in that is going to come straight towards her after tonight when everybody sees this. And the worst part is that the people that are going to be spreading that hate aren't even going to take the time to watch the episode first.
Yeah.
They're going to get wind of what the episode is about, and they're going to start. I mean, they probably already started because I was saying 3 clips aired. One of the clips was the beginning of that chest binding scene.
Okay.
Shakina actually posted that one on her socials. And I was a little surprised that they let her do that. They let her release that. And like I said, they seem to be really pushing this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And So I'm sure the hate's already started flowing in because of that, and that's going to be as much of this as those people are probably going to even bother to watch. They're not even going to see how the context of the show played out. So, and that's all I'm going to say about them. It's just really sad, and it hurts my heart that people are so freaking hateful that they go out of their way to try and tear other people down.
Yeah, I am right there with you.
The other clips that came out this week is NBC posted that clip of Ian talking to Rachel on the phone about Gideon.
Ah, yes.
So the name Gideon's already out there even before this episode airs. People are starting to ask, who's Gideon? And I'm excited that worked, that it made people start talking about the show, and they want to tune in to see, well, what was that chat all about, right? And the other clip, Us Weekly posted an exclusive clip, and it was of Tom and Addison announcing to the team that they are getting married today.
Yeah. Well,
along with an article about them eloping.
Right. Isn't that...
And when I saw that come out, I had so much to say. I'm like, I can't say anything. Don't post anything. Don't get yourself in trouble with NBC. It's a secret. Stop talking. And I didn't. I was good.
Why was that even allowed, though? Why was the press allowed to print that?
They chose to leak. NBC gave their blessing to air that clip.
Okay.
And again, they're trying to get people to come into the show, but and I'll just say what I have to say about the Tom and Addison thing right here, because
okay,
it flows nicely into that. When we got our screeners, and I don't know if you bother reading what the emails say.
I attempt not to.
Yeah, and I'd like to not be spoiled, but at the same time, I can't help myself. So because the screener letter, they say, don't spoil anything, right? But specifically, don't spoil this, or this. And that's what the screeners tell us. So the screener letter this week, when we got this up off, when we got, what's this? Family Treasure. It said, and I meant to quote it here and I didn't quote it. So I'm going to say it not in exact words. They said, don't share that Addison and Tom decided to delay the wedding, or and I read that prior to watching this episode, when the last scene we watched was the engagement.
Right.
And I literally started laughing out loud. I was like, what are y'all doing? Then you start watching the episode, and the first time we see Tom and Addison is, we're getting married today.
Right.
And I know where that's going because I already read the screener letter, and I was just like, I give up. I give up. I already don't care about Tom and Addison. And now we're yo-yoing. See what I did there?
Yeah.
All over the place in the course of one episode. And I was like, I don't understand why they're doing this.
Yeah. So we ended the last episode with the engagement.
Right.
We didn't hear anything about them eloping in the last episode.
No.
So in this episode, we start with, hey, we're gonna get married today. I'm like, what? What are we doing here?
Right.
So that was my reaction to that. And then later in the episode, since we're talking about it, might as well just get to it. Later in the episode, we see Addison looking thoughtful and confused.
We see the moment that something flipped for her within the context of the lead.
I still don't get what exactly that was. But she goes to Tom and says, we shouldn't do this. We should, postpone the wedding or whatever. We shouldn't get married today.
We're rushing things, really.
Right. Okay, fine. That's sane,
valid,
logical. And then it turns into, we're breaking up, or we're taking a break.
We're taking a break. We're adding to time some space, and he's moving out, and...
Well, first of all, it's like, wait a second. If they're just postponing the wedding, why do they need this time and space?
Right.
What's going on here? They're not telling me what the thought process is here.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you're having him move out of his house? Isn't it his house that they were living in?
It's his house, yeah.
So, you can go stay with Jen or something like that.
Now, see, I took it as she meant she would go stay with Jen.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, no, I'm just going to go back to D.C. Right. Peace out.
Yeah.
And aren't you supposed to be here because your job is to oversee this project?
Yeah, something along those lines.
So, you're just going to... Are you abandoning post?
Right.
Or what? Yeah, I don't know. That's the overall of it, is I don't know what the hell is going on.
It was just so confusing, and I don't understand what's going on here. You made this big deal about the proposal in the last episode to get to this episode, and nope, never mind.
Right.
We're breaking up or taking a break or whatever.
Whatever.
Without really any explanation for how Addison even got here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was not done very well.
So, we're now 30 minutes into our recording.
Yes.
Maybe we should start talking about the episode.
Right. Yep, all right. So, I mean, technically, we just covered
some stuff, but let's dive into our scene by scene and really kind of dig into our deep dive here.
All right, so Ben leaps in. He's having a will read to him.
Yeah, he's a woman.
Yep.
And holding a tray of tea.
This is his fourth time as a woman, by the way.
This
season. This season.
I was like, we're way past
No.
This is actually Ben's, if I'm remembering this conversation I had, because this is in my notes, 10th time as a woman.
Altogether.
Yeah. And has now surpassed Sam.
Nice.
Sam had a total of 9 female hosts, and Nadia is Ben's 10th female host.
All right. So even if the series ends this season, he will have beaten Sam Beckett in his leaps into women.
Yes.
He's one of 3 sisters. His name is Nadia.
Yep, Nadia Malik.
The other sisters, Dina likes to call herself Dean.
Yep.
There's going to be some, gender pronoun confusion throughout this episode. We apologize, but there's a lot, so. Yeah,
between what's actually being said versus what should be said versus what comes out of our brains.
Right. They go by they. They them pronouns. Okay, so
you just threw that. I don't know.
Okay, they are played by Wilder Yari.
There you go. We're talking about the actor,
right? Who is non-binary?
Yes,
going by they them pronouns.
Correct.
They have 15 credits for them, and Sarah, the other sister, is played by Holly Bahar. She was in an episode of Westworld and an episode of This Is Us, credited as Hot Girl Fan in Season 1 episode titled The Best Washing Machine in the World.
Yes,
which is
the best washing machine in the whole world.
In the whole world.
Yeah.
Which is an episode that I covered on this channel way back when.
Now, I remember the whole washing machine aspect, but I don't remember what we're fangirling in that episode.
I mean, I'm guessing it has something to do with Kevin, played by Justin Harley.
So it's probably a fangirl of Kevin.
Yep.
I thought Hot Girl Fan was a really funny credit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I did put that in my notes as well. And what we tend to do is, we'll look at guest actors' IMDb's, and, they might have 100 credits, very, prolific stuff going on. But we'll highlight on things that matter to us, right? Things we've seen, things we've talked about on the channel. And for us to highlight, she had this guest appearance as Hot Girl Fan. Just because our names, we both, focused it on This Is Us, because it's something the channel's covered. So I find that funny. I also saw in Holly's IMDb that she was a stunt double on Glee.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
A couple things about that why I find that interesting. One, in the other show that we have airing tonight.
Yes.
Which actually is our last podcast episode.
Yep.
About extended family, episode 7. One of the guests on that episode was also on Glee.
Oh, okay.
So I had Glee in my mind when doing these notes because I'd seen it across multiple actors looking up. And the other thing is, knowing that she is a stunt double, I did see Wilder Yari make a social media post, and it was a picture of Wilder, Holly, and Raymond. And the caption said something about doing stunts. So I think they all did their own stunt work in this episode.
Pretty sweet.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? With the whole, rocks falling and all that, I think, I mean, they may have, I don't know. I don't know specifically, but I know that they posted something about doing stunts. And it was a picture of all 3 of those actors. And knowing that Holly was a stunt double, that tracks that maybe they just did all their own stunts, which is super amazing and cool.
Yes, absolutely.
Super amazing and cool. And back to Wilder Yari for a second. One thing I noticed on their IMDb is they weren't in a show I watched. They played the character of Jessica on the 2021 CW remake of 4400.
4400 had a remake?
The original, The 4400, which came out in the 90s. Love that. One of my all-time favorite series. It had a short-lived remake. It was a single season. I think it had 8 episodes or something on CW, our friend CW. Hey.
Yes.
Where we cover Sullivan's Crossing.
Yep.
They had in 2021 a remake just called 4400, and it was a very soft remake.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the only connective tissue was the fact that 4,400 people who had disappeared throughout time all of a sudden reappeared together.
Okay. Was it the same people who disappeared, or?
It was not anything else the same.
Okay.
We had none of the same characters. We had not the same setting. We had not the same reasons for disappearances. It was a very, very, very different story.
Okay.
But it was 4,400 people who had disappeared throughout different ages of history, all coming back together. And again, it was very short-lived and it was canceled, so we didn't get to really explore it. I would say love 4,400 differently than the 4,400, very much so. Not the same show at all, not the same quality, but I was enjoying watching it either way, even though it wasn't the 4,400 for me.
Gotcha.
But I would have liked to have seen it, because I felt like anytime you're telling stories in history, I enjoy that, right? I love time travel. And anyways, I bring this up specifically because you and I had a conversation about this episode a couple days ago, and specifically talking about transgender individuals throughout history.
Yes.
And when we were having that conversation, I thought about 4,400.
Okay.
Because one of the characters in this 2021 show was a transgender male.
Okay.
From 1920s Harlem.
Oh.
And he was a doctor.
Gotcha.
A black transgender male doctor from Harlem in the 1920s.
Huh.
And that sounds like that must be made up, right? But no, these are things that happen in history.
Yeah, they weren't like we said at the top. This stuff happened.
Exactly.
It's just it wasn't talked about as much.
Right.
Not using the same language.
Exactly.
So on and so forth.
That's why I'm bringing this up, is within the context of that character in 4,400. It dealt with all of that throughout the however many episodes this ran. We got to see flashbacks of this person's life. In the 1920s, someone who was born female, identified as male, and hid from the world the fact that they were not genetically a male. Didn't know the term transgender.
Right.
Learned that term when, appearing in 2021, displaced in time, and got to learn all about the history of all of the advancements, to the whole LGBTQ community and everything that has gotten better over the last 100 years since they had lived. And also how much of a long way there was still to go. See, struggles in the modern day that people were still facing. But also the fact that people were out and proud, which blew his mind, because he had to keep his whole self secret from everybody.
I mean, in his case, if he didn't do that, he would probably end up dead. Right,
exactly. So it was just I felt like this show was a good representation of showing some historical context. And it, introduced other characters in that character's life, and just kind of, what that community was like. Because there were, a community, there were certain individuals who were in on the know of these things. And I feel like it was fairly accurate, representing the fact that, yeah, this is something that happens in history. And Wilder Yari played a part in that as a Department of Homeland Security officer that was overseeing the returned. And in that, she was dating a woman who was another person involved in policing the situation. And they basically ended up going against all of the rules to help these people.
Oh, well, so they're good guys.
They're the good guys, yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I just thought it really funny when I saw that on their IMDb page. That I was like, I was literally just thinking about that when we were talking about this topic.
I'm sure it's not a coincidence that they appear in this episode.
Well, this is the part.
And also appeared in fourth.
This is the part that casting call had come out for. That, I'm sure everybody's seen that, because we all made that very public. Shakina had put out a casting call for a assigned female at birth, transgender, masculine presenting actor. And that is the part that was filled here for Dina Dean.
Gotcha. Okay.
And and I think they made a great choice. I feel like Wilder did a really amazing job.
That was definitely a good job by Wilder.
of presenting this character of Dean.
All right. So we're still at the beginning and we're 40 minutes in. Okay, so they are each getting token objects in the will. None of them are particularly happy about what they get. Ben ends up getting a ship in a bottle.
Yeah, and Sarah got a terracotta vase. Dean got a baseball and a mitt.
The girls start fighting. Ben gets bumped into, and the ship
by the lawyer. Mr. Wells. He's played by Dan Bacadal.
Mm-hmm. And the ship ends up breaking. Ben realizes that what's inside the bottle is a map, leading Ben to think that perhaps they got left more than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's a piece of a treasure map.
So, back at the project, Addison and Tom are telling the crew that they are getting married today. Eloping, we've already covered this.
Ian is sad about this because they say wedding planning is their love language. Magic says it's more about Tom and Addison's love, and Addison tells us she's planned a wedding once before, and that was enough. If they hit the courthouse around 5 o'clock, they'll have time to grab a bite to eat.
Well, sounds like an evening to me.
And did she plan a wedding before?
Ben and Addison's wedding.
Right. That's where I was stuck a little because Ben leaped the day of their engagement party.
Okay.
Which to me means they just recently got engaged.
Yes.
So when did you plan a wedding?
I don't know. Maybe she had it planned prior to the engagement.
Like, I feel like she wouldn't have really gotten very... As someone who's planned a wedding...
Yes.
I don't feel like she would have gotten very far by the time of her engagement party. And she certainly would have put planning on hold once, Ben was lost in time. And she might die.
Yes.
So...
Yeah. So Ziggy ends up locating Ben, and off they go to find him.
Everybody leaves except for Tom and Addison, and he lingers to ask her if she's sure she isn't rushing. So we already see that he's kind of thinking maybe this is rushing, which leads me to think it was Addison's idea to get married today.
Right.
And she says that all of this leaping and traveling through time has taught her to do not wait to live your life.
That is an inspiring message that she's going to completely reverse by the end of this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so anyway, in the past, the girls are discovering that they all have pieces of the map.
Yeah, there's 4 pieces all together that they've found, and they've put it together to make this treasure map.
Dean is excited, but Sarah is less so, thinking this is just another one of their dad's stories.
Yeah, and Dean tells us that this is mapped to the treasure of San Patricio, which was their dad's last obsession before he died. The treasure is said to be the cursed jewels of St. Patrick's cane.
Oh, okay.
And I tried looking all this up to see if this was like a real legend. Obviously, St. Patrick is real. And I was looking up San Patricio treasure and where we end up going in Mexico, which is Dos Estrellas, Mexico.
Okay.
I didn't get very far. I don't know. My conclusion is I'm not sure if any of this is based on anything or not.
Okay.
I was finding there's a I don't know how to say Dos Estrellas. There's a Dos Estrellas, Texas that has a lot of lore about treasure, but not in Mexico.
Interesting.
So I don't know. Usually I come with all the facts, right? And yeah. I failed to get them in
Which is why I didn't even bother looking into it.
Yeah, I looked, but it's been a busy week. I didn't spend a lot of time on it.
Right. All right, so Addison arrives and is whispering for Ben for no reason at all because nobody else can hear her.
Yeah, right.
And Ben basically says he needs to go tinkle. And Ben asks what happened in the last leap. 2 more seconds and he could have saved Hannah's Josh. Addison says that God, time, or fate doesn't always leave it up to them.
Actually,
I know what she actually said.
She said the accelerator.
Yes.
And in my notes, I just wrote no.
Yeah, I'm right. I wrote in my notes
you're editing.
Should have said
GFTW.
Right, but no, she really credits the accelerator, and we've covered all season long, why this annoys the ever-loving crap out of us. But anyway,
but they aren't allowed to decide who Ben saves.
Yes. So Ben asks what he's supposed to do now: find a treasure or stop his sisters from fighting. Addison thinks that finding a treasure would be easier. Yes. Probably.
Yes. And Addison tells us about the host, Nadia Malik. She is 17 years old. So Ben is a minor for the second time, I think.
Yes, I think so.
And she had just graduated from a finishing school, and she's headed to university.
Their father was a Lebanese Christian, escaping religious persecution in the 1920s. He became a disgraced professor chasing treasure. Dina disappears about a week after the will is read somewhere in Mexico. Ben suggests she must have gone looking for the treasure alone, and Ben goes to change that.
Yes, and we also learned during this that the other sister, Sarah, is married with 2 kids.
Yes.
Sarah's the oldest, and Nadia is the youngest.
Mm-hmm. So that would make Dean the middle child.
Yeah.
Sarah is skeptical. Ben declares himself in. The lawyer backs Ben up. Dina is excited. Sarah, not so much. She rarely is in this episode. Sarah believes his treasure hunts destroyed the family. Sarah says that there is no way she's going to go, but the lawyer says the real treasure, the treasure is real.
Yeah, the lawyer says he's been best friends with the dad for, I forget how many years he said, believes him that the treasure is real, and tells us that the Jewels of St. Patrick should be worth about $40 million today.
Yes.
Today being 1953.
Right, so how much would they be worth now?
I did adjust that for inflation. And 40 million in 1953 would be 444.6 million today.
Okay. You want to go on a treasure hunt?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So they all take off for an adventure in Mexico, and then we have our credits.
Yeah.
After the credits, Ben picks up on something being wrong with Addison, but she doesn't get the chance to tell him. The sisters end up bickering. Dean tells Sarah that she told her to pack light, but Sarah refuses to take fashion advice from her. She keeps referring to her as Dina, despite their preference for being called Dean.
Yeah.
I think so far I'm doing okay with this. Ben interrupts the fight and suggests getting a drink while they plot their next move.
Yeah, so they're going to go to a cantina to get a drink. There was this whole funny thing about Dean saying, well, Sarah, don't you have a canteen? I told you to bring a canteen. And
right.
She's just like, no, I brought heels and an evening gown.
Yeah.
That's what you need on a treasure hunt in Mexico.
Right, absolutely. And yeah, Sarah proves herself to be kind of naive.
We learned a little bit more about the treasure during all of this scene. And let's see. I lost my place. Sorry. Okay. So we're in, like I said before, Dos Estrellas, Mexico, and there used to be 2 pueblos that shared a river, and then the Spanish came and put up a dam and dried up the north side.
Mm-hmm.
And a priest stole, so the church took a bribe, and this treasure was given to the church as a bribe to put up the dam.
Okay,
so that's the reason the town fell apart, is because this dam went up, and it was the church who took a bribe and allowed them to do this. A priest from that church stole the jewels and hid them, saying it was blood money and they didn't want it. And then we'll get some more details on that later.
Okay, so Ian is looking up clues from Ziggy in the future, or present day, or whatever.
Yeah, trying to decrypt the first little riddle on the map, which is, I stand on cursed ground before the path well concealed.
And Jen thinks that they are pouring themselves into their work to avoid talking about Tom and Addison. Jen has a more optimistic look on the whole thing, which takes Ian by surprise.
Yeah, Jen is happy for them and says that Addison deserves a life. Tom makes her happy, and that's all that really matters.
Ian gets a call from Rachel, who's in a panic. Her boss knows they have a mole and are looking for said mole. She knows she's going to be found out. And I think they lose contact with each other.
And she says something like, as soon as... and we get the name Gideon for the first time in this moment.
Yeah.
And Rachel says, when he finds out that it's her, that's going to lead to Ian and the project. But shouldn't the boss already know that's where the leak is coming from?
You would assume so.
Because we know the leak is this chip, which he made for Ian.
Right.
Does he not know that Rachel and Ian are dating?
I would think he would know that information.
He should know that information, right?
Yeah.
It should be pretty obvious what's happening here. So I'm not sure why we need this deep, he's digging up, going through the whole office. And it should be pretty obvious that, hey, Ian's girlfriend did it.
Right. So back in the past, at the canteen, Sarah thinks this is a fool's errand. They end up yelling and bickering again. This attracts the attention of everyone in the bar. The bartender, Ricardo.
Ricardo, he owns the cantina, and he is played by Kian Alexander, who was in The Expanse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so he ends up talking to the girls about everyone looking for the treasure. He seems to flirt with Sarah a bit, who is taken with him, obviously, despite or because of being married with kids. And actually, I think this signifies. Oh, I mean, I guess either way, she would find him attractive and maybe flirt a little bit, even if she was in a happy relationship. But as it turns out, that is not a very good relationship at all.
Yeah, it was sometime actually during this scene that we learned from Dean that Sarah's husband doesn't treat her very well.
Mm-hmm. Dean and Sarah talk. She bashes Sarah's husband, as you just mentioned, and marvels at all the people who are looking to change their lives with the treasure.
Yeah, so on the wall there's pictures of all of these people who have come to look for the treasure. A lot of people have looked for this treasure over the years.
Mm-hmm. But Dean isn't looking for a sense of accomplishment and to make her mark. She feels like she never quite fits in. They find their dad on the wall, and they declare that they miss him. But that's when Ben figures out one of the clues, because her dad was standing in front of a well.
A well, yeah.
In the map.
And well concealed, and the clue actually meant go to the well.
Wow, that's not a very subtle clue.
It was all of his clues were very punny.
Mm.
They were good dad jokes.
I mean, yeah, if I were to make clues to a treasure hunt, I would probably make them exactly the same way.
And during this, right before they had walked away from the bar, Ricardo offered to hold their bags. Dean declined and said that they would keep their bag on them, but then left it with Sarah.
Right.
And I'm like, why would you do that?
Right.
You don't want to hand it over to the stranger. That makes sense. Why are you leaving it in Sarah's control? Why did you not carry it with you to go look at the photos?
Right. My guess is it's so that Ricardo, the bartender, could steal from them.
Yeah, so Sarah, after being told, watch the satchel, just leaves it unattended.
Mm-hmm.
And, no surprise, Ricardo stole the map.
Yes, he seemed a little too friendly and a little too willing to help, and it was very, very suspicious. So there's another round of arguing that Ben has to break up. He mentions that he will use his photographic memory to redraw the map, and says he has a good memory because of the finishing school that he attended.
Yeah, he took a class at finishing school that taught him how to have a photographic memory, apparently.
And Sarah's like, wait, are we headed after an armed man with a map drawn by Nadia? And yep, that's exactly what they are doing.
Yeah.
Ben says it sounds like an adventure to him, and Sarah actually smiles at this. Jen and Ian talk about the chip situation, about Rachel's boss, Gideon. Ian says Rachel's going to lose her job, and they are going to go to jail.
Yeah, and Jen has put out breadcrumbs across the dark web looking for a hacker to come get into Gideon's servers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to get out of that.
Right.
And also, can't Jen and Ian hack it themselves? Aren't they super smart hacker people?
That's what I thought.
Why do we keep needing all this outside help?
Right.
Like, why did Ian need Gideon to make the chip in the first place?
Mm.
And then why did Ian need Rachel to come do whatever Rachel did to the chip?
Right.
And now why do we need a hacker to come hack Gideon's servers?
Yeah, I do not know.
I mean, you guys are the ones that handle, like, everything techie here on this super advanced quantum computer. Should you not know how to do all this yourselves?
I mean, maybe just ask Ziggy, and Ziggy could probably tell you how to build it.
I mean, yeah, right? Like, you should...
Yeah.
Seems like you have really good resources, but I don't know.
Jen says it's time to loop magic in. It's well past that time. He's going to know by the end of this episode what's going on. Even though he wasn't in that last scene, he's still going to end up knowing.
He'll know soon enough, yeah. Right. And we actually got the full name of Rachel's boss at this point. Gideon Ridge.
Oh, yeah, I did have that in my notes.
Gideon Ridge, which I tried looking that up. And
I also looked that up.
In my mind, I'm thinking, I still think this is Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. And this is a fake name. And I was trying to find out, did the name Gideon Ridge maybe come from something, right? From some fiction that's why that name was picked. But I couldn't come up with that meaning anything in the real world.
So, in the past, Ben figures out a clue. And after determining that the well is dry, they all go down. They're at the well at this point.
Okay, yeah, and this is the second clue on the map, which says, snakes underground, hide the shamrock key. And Sarah says she is not doing snakes. Me either, girl. I am really glad we didn't go
Yes.
there. I don't do snakes.
Yeah.
But what Ben had figured out is that the snakes underground was referring to the tunnels
Right.
underneath the well system. So they go down into the well.
Addison shows up to help, and as they move along, Dean shares the story of the legend, which I'm sure you have.
Yes. So picking up where we were, which was that the treasure was given as a bribe to the church, right?
Mm.
So, according to legend, 1,500 years ago, a white man in an Irish rowboat appeared on the shores of Mexico, a bearded white man, and some say that was St. Patrick, which is why this is the San Patricio treasure. But locals thought that it was a feathered serpent god, which they did name, but I couldn't even guess enough at that name what they were saying to write something that didn't make sense. Because we don't have, subtitles on screeners. I listened to that sentence 50 times and I was like, I have no idea what they're saying. So that's what I got. Feathered serpent god.
See, I didn't even get any of that.
Feathered serpent god had a name. I did not catch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't able to look up if that was real because I didn't even know what they were saying. But their dad's theory is that the priest that stole the jewels buried them as an offering to the feathered serpent god as a way to bring the water back.
See, this is why I'm glad you're around, because I didn't even have to try to understand the story or even record it in my notes because I knew you were going to do that and explain it to me. So.
I really wish that screeners had a subtitle caption option.
Yeah, that would be nice.
This would be a lot quicker for me if I could, because that's how I watch television, right? I have captions on for literally everything, and it's hard. It's not that I don't have a hearing problem, not at all, but my brain just doesn't work that way.
Right.
If I could see this stuff in writing, my note taking would be 3 times faster than it is doing it the way I do it. Especially in this episode, I found myself stopping and rewinding 10 seconds, like, constantly. It's like, what did they just say?
Right. So Sarah asks, well, how long has it been since the well has dried up? And she ends up stumbling into a skeleton. She's scared by this.
A very dried up skeleton.
Yes. So it's been a while.
It's been a while, and they presume this is a treasure hunter.
Mm-hmm. They arrive at a cabin, and they look around for a clue. Another fight ensues as Sarah says that Dean doesn't have anything to go back to, and Dean says she wouldn't last one day in her shoes, and she finishes off with she wouldn't last one day in Sarah's shoes either, in the hell of a home that Sarah calls home. I think I screwed that up, but yeah.
Another reference that Sarah's life is not all roses and sunshine.
Ben figures out a clue about...
Yeah, he's pondering that whole Shamrock key business while they're arguing, and he makes another realization that this is a pun. So Shamrock isn't referring to a clover. It's talking about a fake rock. And
at this point, I'm like, yeah, whatever, Ben, if that's what you're saying, cool.
It's a sham.
Fake. Yeah, makes sense.
And Ben gives Addison a Shawshank Redemption quote. He says, look for the rock that has no earthly business being down here, and for that she calls him a nerd.
Okay, but she understood the reference.
She did.
So doesn't that also make her a nerd?
Of course it does.
And it also makes me a nerd because I totally got that too. that Shawshank Redemption is an excellent movie. So they find it, and they find the rock.
Yeah, Dean finds this hollowed out part in the wall with fake rocks, and there's a little hidey hole behind it.
And they need Sarah's help and her ballerina arms. And she ends up, she reaches in and she decides to pull a prank and pretend like something's got her.
Yeah, she's screaming and everybody's falling for it. And she reveals she's just joking, which is kind of refreshing from Sarah because Sarah's been pretty negative, Nancy, this whole time. And she's finally having a little bit of fun.
That's good. And she pulls out a key. And I think that's what they were looking for.
Yes, they were looking for the Shamrock key and they found it. But they didn't have any time to celebrate this moment because Ricardo arrives with a gun.
And, wouldn't you know it, Ricardo works for Mr. Wells, the lawyer.
Yes, and he's there too. And Ben realizes that he set them up, knocked the ship out of his hands on purpose. And this whole thing was to get the girls to help them find the treasure. Mm-hmm. Now, you couldn't have done this without the girls' help?
I mean, I think he could have, but maybe he's just not that smart.
Yeah.
So Mr. Wells ends up shooting Ricardo. Ben tries to convince him that he still needs them. And they keep him talking, and eventually Dean throws a rock at him, and then there's another cave-in. The sisters are revealed to be okay. Mr. Wells, not so much.
And this is that scene that I'm curious to know the answer, but I feel like they may have done their own stunts based on that post that Wilder had made, which is super cool, again.
They have the key, but they are also trapped.
And are these... Well, I'm pretty sure Ricardo's dead because he got shot. Is Mr. Wells dead, or is he just passed out in the rocks?
I don't know.
Did they even... I don't think they even checked on him.
No. I mean, would you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think you'd want to know, like, how many dead bodies you're just leaving behind, or if there's a chance he's going to get up and follow you again.
Right. I mean, fair enough. So Addison finds him a way out, and sure enough, they end up getting out. And, for once, Addison is doing her job.
Yes, Addison did a great job throughout this.
Yeah.
She was helping lead them through the tunnels. I mean, I suppose she could have done a little bit better job of, like, looking through the rocks to find the space, but she did a pretty good job, better than she usually does. Usually she just kind of stands there and is like, I can't help.
Yeah,
when, you can.
I guess you guys are screwed. I don't know what to tell you. So they are outside, and they find an abandoned town.
Yeah, they're in the ghost town. So they're in the north side of town, the part that got cut off when the dam was put up, which is where this church supposedly is that they're looking for.
Sarah ends up noticing bandages under Dean's shirt.
Right, because Dean's shirt got ripped a little bit during the cave-in, and Sarah expresses concern, wants to know if Dean is hurt.
So she ends up removing it, and she says that is not why they wear the bandages. Ian observes from the future, calling her a trans-masculine, and impressed that there was one in the 50s.
Well, not that there was in the 50s, because, like, they know this exists, but was very impressed to be a part of it, to be experiencing this and to get to witness this type of moment in history that everybody knows exists, but isn't really well documented,
right.
I guess, is how I would say it.
Okay.
Jen points out how dangerous it is to bind with elastic bandages.
Yes.
Which isn't something I knew.
I did not know that either.
I know that any type of, body manipulation can be very dangerous.
Yep.
If done incorrectly. And I can see how there would be dangers involved here. It makes sense, but it's a point I hadn't ever thought of. And I feel like it's really great that they made sure to include that. That this is what would have been happening in the 1950s. This would have been the method of binding used. And important to point out, like, hey, this isn't the right way to go about doing it because it's not safe.
Right.
Although I do wish they had included here's the alternative.
Okay.
Ian was like, oh, yeah, they didn't have a lot of choice back then.
Right.
And I feel like it would have been just even better. And maybe this was even in the script that got cut. If Ian would have gone a step further and been like, nowadays you can buy this or do that or, give some ideas because I feel like, there are kids today who might grab elastic ace bandages. And if that's really an unsafe thing to do, that needs to be talked about more, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if this is clearly an issue and maybe not everybody who is in the situation knows of a safer alternative, and this is a good opportunity to maybe share some of those
to educate.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel like that's awesome that they included that snippet, and obviously that's why they did it is for viewers of the show, being like, hey, we're not encouraging using ace bandages to bind because that's dangerous, and I'm assuming it can like cut off your blood flow or something along those lines. I mean, I know there are like specific chest binders you can purchase. I don't know any details about that, but like, if that's something that anybody is looking for, find that information.
Yeah.
Look up the safety information.
Right.
On how all that works.
Sarah doesn't understand. Dean says that they feel more like themselves when they are like that. And Sarah asks if Dean wants to be a man. And no, Dean says. And there's some other question.
Yeah, Sarah says, do you think it's shameful to be a woman? And Dean says, no, of course not. Being a woman is great for some people, but they really aren't one or the other.
Right.
Dean says, I am just Dean.
Yes. And you know what's funny? I don't know a lot about this stuff.
Yeah.
I really don't. And it makes it hard to talk about it, a little bit awkward. At the same time, when Dean said that, I kind of related to that a little bit. See, I feel like if you take the time to actually listen to people that you don't necessarily agree with or understand, that you might find yourself relating to what they have to say.
Right. And that's the case with every topic in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Communication's important, and listening to people's opinions is important.
Right. And, in the past, you and I have had conversations where we've suggested that I don't always have I don't always think like a typical male.
Mm-hmm.
So society tries to kind of pigeonhole us. Of course it does. But I mean, that's a way, because I don't think like a typical male, that's a way in which I kind of relate to Dean. So that's a point where we can connect, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm totally explaining myself properly, but it's not like I'm going to go out there and start changing my pronouns or anything like that. It's just that I can relate to that specific thing.
Yeah.
But, all right.
Ben gives Dean his jacket and says Dean looks badass.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean says they don't like the Miss and Ma'am, but they don't want to be called Sir either, and they wish they had better words for it. And this is when Ben starts talking about their best friend,
Ian.
Ben's obviously talking about Ian, but fits it in by saying, "Oh, it's somebody I met at finishing school. You don't know her."
Right.
And we're getting at the same time, we keep glancing back to Ian looking at the monitors.
Yes. And this is the one time that I've seen them do this where I don't object.
Yeah, I thought it was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really curious, like, what Mason had to respond to. Because, when they're watching the monitors, they're not really watching the footage. They're recording that without ever seeing the real footage.
I'm sure they read the script.
Right. Like, I'm sure they read the script and, like, knew what they're reacting to.
Yeah.
But amazing job to Mason Alexander Park for pulling those emotions in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was really believable that Ian is watching Ben talk about them.
Right.
And Ben says about their best friend who feels the same way that Dean does and asks that they use they and them instead of he or she, which is really binary.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean relates this word to spy code because, of course, saying that it's computer language, that's not going to fly here either in 1953.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben explains that binary refers to any time there are only two options, like a light switch being either on or off, or a person being either good or bad. And Sarah chimes in to say she doesn't believe that's true, that people are either good or bad. And Ben says that's the point.
Mm-hmm. We
need more possibilities than binary. And his friend identifies as non-binary. And Dean says that they like that. And they feel like that is them. And Sarah asks Dean if Dean is still her sister. And Dean says that they are her sibling. And Sarah says that she can live with that. And they hug it out. And Sarah, for the very first time, addresses Dina as Dean.
And Ian from the future says out loud, "Well done, Ben Song."
Yeah, and Ian, again, was just beautiful, like smiling and tearing up. And it was really a very well done scene all around.
It was well done. I have one little quibble.
Okay.
Like if we were still doing the hologram of the week thing, Ian could have been in the past reacting to this. Like, sure. He could have been Ben's hologram.
Sure.
I'm not saying that's a deal breaker or anything. It's beautiful as is. But, we could have had Ian standing there seeing this and interacting with Ben during this.
Sure. But
yeah, it's
during this whole thing that Addison starts getting that look in her eye.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think, like, where we go with Addison is particularly well done. But, this is where she starts getting, ideas in her head, but we don't even really know what those ideas are.
Exactly.
So. Yeah.
Dean says it only took a treasure map, 2 bad guys, and almost being buried alive for them to be honest with each other.
Is that all?
That's all. I feel like we had a similar conversation this week.
Yes, we did. Yeah. It was kind of sad, but yeah. So Sarah randomly declares that she is leaving Douglas.
Yeah, she decided this was a good moment to share what she's been keeping to herself. She's leaving Douglas because, again, he's very horrible to her and the children. And she said she's done staying in an unhappy marriage just because the world says that's what she's supposed to do. And remember, 1953, the idea of divorce is just as taboo as the concept of transgender or non-binary identification.
This is a very modern concept in and of itself.
Right.
So, yeah. Ben declares she isn't alone because she has them. And then they end up continuing their quest.
Well, just on that, one more second.
Okay.
She said that while her and Douglas were dating, they had all of these same problems, but she thought that getting married would fix their problems. And of course,
oh, by the way, doesn't.
Of course,
happen.
That's not how it works.
Right.
And she says you have to fix yourself before you can fill a hole in your life.
Yeah. For those who think that they're going to get married and this is going to improve their relationships, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. Marriage, it does the opposite. It intensifies everything. So if you couldn't live with something before, it's going to be that much worse after you get married.
But it's during that moment that you can really see on Addison's face, she's taking this statement to heart. And something that Sarah says about, not getting married to like fill a gap in your life made Addison realize that's what she's doing. She's rushing into this marriage and maybe it's not what she really wants. And again, we're not getting the details of her line of thinking, but it was something in that clicked it for her that, oh wait, I shouldn't do this. So
they get to this cabin area.
The church.
Yeah, the church. And they each find a key.
No.
No?
No.
Okay,
so Ben finds a panel on the floor with a keyhole.
Okay.
They have the key that they got in the caves. Remember, that's where they got the key from. But it doesn't work. And so now they have to decipher the last clue on the map. The last clue is a turn for every season of Guadalupe's flower. And Ben's like, well, who's Guadalupe? And Addison's the one who figures this out. There's a painting on the wall of the Virgin Mary, and she's holding a flower with 4 petals. And then finally Ben puts it together. 4 petals, 4 seasons, 4 different parts the map was ripped into. And he realizes they need to turn the key 4 times to make it work.
Okay.
So they had only turned it once, which is, how a key usually works.
Right. All right. So I think I have to admit at this point that, you
lost the thread a little.
Yeah. When you talk about how you really can't pay attention when it comes to like action.
Yeah.
When we're doing treasure hunts, I just can't keep it in my head. Like some people will be like, say something excitedly. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take your word for it, but I don't understand what you're talking about.
Like I said, I had to rewind a lot during this episode.
Yeah.
Like some of these like moments I watched 10, 15 times each just to like try and really grasp what are they saying? What's happening?
Right.
What's the pun? What's the legend? And I still didn't, get all of it. I definitely missed some of it.
So they each end up taking a turn with the key. The floor opens to reveal a chest. It unlocks a mechanism, and Ben reveals that, and then they hear a rushing.
There's a bell ringing outside. Yeah. Remember, this is a ghost town.
Right. And Ben realizes that they just opened a spillway.
For the dam. So the dam that started all of this 1,500 years ago has been opened, and water is rushing into where it used to be this river. And Ben takes the chest. They start running. The water starts pouring into town. They end up ducking behind a rock, and the water rushes over them. And eventually it settles out. The rush is gone, so they're able to go find their way to some dry land. Ben opens the box. It looked like he was breaking this lock with a paperclip.
I'm not really sure what he was doing.
Yeah.
But it's empty.
It's empty.
Yeah.
Now, shouldn't Ben have realized when he's carrying this chest that it wasn't full of $40 million worth of jewels? You gotta figure $40 million worth of jewels is really heavy.
So Ben realizes it has a false bottom. He opens it, and once you know it, it has a letter.
A letter from their dad.
Revealing his regret, and ends that the treasure hunt the treasure was really at home with family. And Sarah declares, let's go home together. All right, so at this point, this whole treasure hunt was about finding a letter, at least, which is...
Right.
Okay, so I'll bring that up at the end.
The letter at face value said, you found the same thing I did, emptiness.
Right.
And he basically apologizes for not being there for them and for being away so long because their mom had died and he still was spending his life treasure hunting. Sarah ended up raising the younger siblings. And he says he wasted his life looking for treasures and running from love because he was scared.
And I'll mind you at this point that 2 people have died from their perspective to find this letter.
And in the original history,
Yeah,
Dean was supposed to die.
right.
So yeah, this probably wasn't the best thing that Dad set up, to send his girls to Mexico to look for this treasure that he knows everybody's been looking for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's like bodies down in this cave.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wasn't the best idea to send your girls on this trip. But the whole idea was, I want them to bond. The episode description told us they were estranged. I didn't really get that from the context of the episode.
It seems like they just don't get along.
Yeah, I
very
felt
well.
like they just weren't like very close, but I didn't feel like they were estranged. But maybe that was the message, is they're really estranged, and he's trying to just pull his family together.
Now, I mentioned off air to you that this entire plot kind of reminds me of the show Wings. Way back in the way, it was a comedy show starring Tim Daly and Steven Weber. And the plot of the first episode was their dad dying and their estranged siblings, sending them on a little treasure hunt, only to find a picture of them with the words, "You're rich" on it. So the whole thing was their dad trying to bring them back together. And
then the whole series was them being together, right?
Yeah, basically
now,
their relationship.
I told you this when you mentioned this to me. Like, I did watch Wings.
Yeah.
I watched every episode of it, but I have very little recollection of the details. So, like, this kind of sort of feels vague in my mind. And I meant to go back and review that, but I didn't get an opportunity to. Again, we've been very busy this week.
Yes. But, what's super funny about that is, we're at this point, and, I guess it's a typical television convention how this episode ends, but at the same time, I predicted how this plot was going to end based on Wings.
Yeah.
Because in the series finale, I'll get there when we get there, but yeah.
But yeah, the quote from the letter was, "The real treasure is at home with family," making them think like, oh, we're each other's treasure, right?
Right. And two people dying is totally worth that.
Yeah, totally. And Ben sends Dean and Sarah ahead so he can chat with Addison. He says, asks her if she's going somewhere, because he knows there's something she's been trying to tell him. And instead of telling him about the engagement and the pending wedding at 5 o'clock, she says there's nothing she's trying to tell him, and she's not going anywhere.
So Addison goes to talk to Tom, saying she got caught up in the moment, and she can't get married like this. She needs time.
Yeah, he was right before that. She just wanted him to sweep her away. And she thinks they both underestimated what her being back at the project would mean. Now, you've been back at the project for a while now.
Right.
I'm not sure how that plays into it, because that happened like long before your engagement.
Right. And Tom asked, does time include space? Which, despite, the fact that I don't particularly care about this plot line, I did like that line. Only because, it's a time travel.
And space.
Right.
Yeah.
That was cute. But she says it probably should. And Tom seems to imply that this is about Ben. She thinks it's not, but Tom disagrees.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to throw this accusation right back at Tom. I think the reason why he's rushing to get married in the first place...
Proposing, even.
...is because of Ben.
Right.
Like, the fact that he might come back home soon.
Well, and he almost said as much.
Right.
So, yeah, Addison suggests that Jen has a spare room. I took that as Addison meant, I'll go stay there. You don't have to leave your house.
When I heard that line, I'm like, wait, you're kicking him out of his own house?
And he was like, no, I'm going back to D.C. He said he knew he was rushing her.
Right.
And the more time she spends in the past, the further away she feels in the present. And he was starting to worry about the future.
Which, again, he's basically admitting right there that this has everything to do with Ben, the way he's been, rushing into things.
Right. And she says it isn't about Ben. And he says once you stop to take that time, she'll come to a different conclusion.
And I'm not so sure that's true, but...
I don't think it's... I don't know that it's necessarily... I don't think she's necessarily over Ben. They didn't break up. He was missing, and then suddenly he's back.
Right.
So, yeah, she does have things to resolve there. But at the same time, outside of Ben, I don't think you should be rushing into this marriage with Tom.
Right.
They've been together, 8 months, they said?
Yeah. Now, once again, I'll bring it to myself. When I was with the mother of my child, I was, at a point where I was really happy, and I wanted to hold on to the happiness. So I proposed marriage and rushed us into that.
And like Tom and Addison, I
Yes.
don't think you guys had been together super long time when that happened.
We hadn't. So, in conclusion, that does not work. Like, if it's the right relationship, it'll work out no matter what.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how long you take. In the case of Tom and Addison, maybe that's not the right relationship. In the case of me and the mother of my child, it also was not the right relationship. Thus, it didn't work out. Just getting married to hold on to something does not work. And I feel like that's what Tom is trying to do here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so... Oh, and I also asked, okay, so why does postponing the wedding mean that they are basically breaking up?
Right.
Like when you say take a break, that means you're breaking up.
Yeah, it's really weird what's happening here. We talked about this at the top, but I'm not sure. So is Tom leaving? Are we not going to see any more Tom in these next couple of episodes?
I highly doubt that's how it's going to play out.
And we've said it before, like the only reason Tom was brought into this story, and we know this, is to make Ben single.
Right.
They wanted to make Ben single because they wanted to tell this time-traveling romance story with Ben and Hannah. In order to do that, they had to break up Ben and Addison. And the only way they could think to do that was to make this time jump and give us a reason that Addison moved on. Yeah. Fine. But it leaves us with this story that we now have to deal with, and I feel like they're doing way too much with it.
Yeah, I mean, it actually comes down to what Bakula said at the Q&A. Like, the original series was simple, whereas they are making this way too complicated. Yeah. And I even saw Damon make the same comments in your guest spot on Off the Cuff. He's saying they're doing way too much here. Right. And I absolutely agree. I mean,
I hate to talk about the haters, but some of the people who are super hardcore hate on the new series, one of the things I keep seeing them say over and over is they're tired of seeing people just talk about their emotions, right?
All right, I've seen that too.
And I'm like, that's what it's about. Like, we're talking about trauma and emotions. That's what Quantum Leap is. Right. But when it comes to Addison's emotions, I am over it. Yes. Because it's taking up way too much airtime without giving us any sort of resolution. Right. And I feel like they're spinning their wheels on this particular point. Yeah. And wasting precious airtime that we could be using on something else.
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't have a problem with emotions and feelings in general, but I do feel like they're being wasted on let's go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with Addison and Tom and Addison and Ben and Addison and Addison.
And once again, to bring it back to the haters that you're talking about, these same people, some of them anyway, say that the show is way too soap opera-ish. This is a point where, I kind of sort of agree. Right. At least in terms of, once again, Addison and Tom specifically. Exactly. All right, so let's move on from this. But
I feel like this episode didn't need them saying, we're getting married today, we're not getting married.
Yeah, that's anticlimactic and just silly, like the way they presented it in this episode.
Yeah, and if we wanted to kind of just tuck that away for a little while, why did we have them get engaged in the first place? Right. Or why didn't we just send Tom to Washington and we can deal with this later if they're going to take space? Why did we have to spend 10 minutes out of the episode? We're getting married today. Oh wait, maybe we shouldn't. Oh, let's separate.
Now, do you think this was Shakina's decision to write this in, or
I don't know, but I would guess no. I would guess this is the overall story arc.
Something that they enforced.
This was the overall story arc that they're told make this work in. Right. Because you've got this overall story that has to fit regardless of who's writing each particular episode. And if they're told this is the part of that story you have to include, then they have to include it.
Right. All right, so moving along. In the past, Ben writes a letter to Hannah about Josh.
Yeah, and remember, we're in 1953, and this is exactly what I had guessed was going to happen, so I felt pretty proud that that's how the Hannah of this episode played out. He writes her a letter.
He ends up asking Sarah for a favor, to mail the letter in the 1970s.
He said, mail this letter sometime after May 1st, 1970, but you can never ask me about it again. Right. And Sarah says, you sound just like Dad, and he was right. The real treasure is family.
And which makes Ben realize something.
Yeah, he remembers that's not exactly what the note said. He didn't say the treasure is family. He said the treasure is at home with family.
And so they end up taking off a picture off the wall.
Right, the family portrait, which, remember when Ben leapt in, he was standing and looking at this portrait. He was carrying this tray of tea and looking at the portrait. All Ben had to do was take that portrait off the wall and none of this would have happened.
Right. And so they end up finding the actual treasure and Ben ends up weeping.
Yeah, okay, there's a hole in the wall with a panel over it. They lift it and diamonds and rubies and sapphires start falling out. There's some pearls in there and Ben leaps.
So bringing this back to Wings, in the series finale, they end up finding another clue or a key in the picture, and they actually end up finding treasure in the series finale. So that's like why I ended up predicting this plot, and actually kind of laughing when this whole thing played out because of my memory of that series. I don't know that Shakina was influenced by that at all, that series. Probably not, but still, I found it kind of amusing.
Yeah, just like I don't know if the diamonds inside the dolls last week had actually anybody had ever seen the Chipmunk Adventure, but that's what it brought my mind. And in both 2 episodes in a row now, we're dealing with a bunch of diamonds.
Right, yeah.
I wonder if there's any connection between Kevin's diamonds and these. And that was my question, is in the original history, no one ever found this treasure buried in the wall?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was, like, eventually
someone's going to move that picture, right?
Right.
Are we suggesting, because it's been over 70 years, are we suggesting in over 70 years nobody ever took that picture off the wall?
Right.
Because shouldn't it have been in Ziggy's databanks that this was found eventually?
Yeah, eventually I'm assuming that these girls are not always going to own this house.
Right, I mean, in the original history, Dean died.
Right.
So, okay, so what happened with the house?
Right.
I mean, maybe Sarah or Nadia ended up living there, but it's been over 70 years.
Right.
Nobody, even if it stayed in the family, somebody's eventually going to move that picture.
Right. Maybe this should go over there, or maybe we should replace this picture with something else.
And, okay, maybe they didn't come public and be like, we found the treasures of San Patricio. Okay, but there would have been record that suddenly this family became really wealthy, or
right.
Like there should have been something in the original history telling us what happened to this treasure, and I just find it a little unrealistic that the only way that wouldn't have happened is if nobody moved this picture in 70 years. All
right, so in the future, or present day, or however you want to say it, actually at this point I think they are in our future.
Yeah, we're in 2026. But the present day of the series.
Right. Ian reveals that they are happy. Addison is pushing the wedding, but worried about Rachel because she hasn't texted them back. Suddenly Rachel is at the project, and so is Gideon.
She says, he's here.
Okay, so my comment to you was just anyone can waltz into this project.
Right. How did Gideon get past security, and how come Jen hasn't received like some alert about this security breach?
Right. So good job their security team at Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Jen, I think you need to retrain these people.
So yeah, Gideon Ridge.
Yeah.
Rachel's boss. And he even refers to himself. He's like, hey, I'm Gideon Ridge, Rachel's boss.
Right.
In case anybody missed what's happening.
Right.
He introduces himself to Jen, tells Ian it's good to see them. And we don't really get more.
Right.
In this moment, but it's a really bad tone. Like, Rachel's scared. What's about to happen? Gideon is in the control room of Quantum Leap.
Right.
You know,
which once
they
again
weren't supposed to even know about.
It shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Shouldn't be allowed to happen. Did people get killed? Like, did he shoot his way in? Does Gideon actually have clearance for some reason that we don't know about yet?
Right.
We don't know what's going on. And we don't know who Gideon Ridge is other than Rachel's boss, somebody who's super important. We learned in this episode that Jen said none of the hackers are going to want to have anything to do with him because he's scary and dangerous and bad.
Right.
And I still think it could be Jeffrey.
Yeah, probably.
Age-wise, so Gideon Ridge, rather, is played by James Frain. And he was born in 1968. So in TV time, that I think lines up pretty good with Jeffrey. Jeffrey was born in 63. So this very well could be the character of Jeffrey.
Right.
I still think that's absolutely possible.
James Frain, by the way, is a well-traveled genre actor.
Yeah. He's very prolific career, tons and tons and tons and tons of credits. And again, just writing the things that jumped out to me. He was in 9 episodes of Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
He was in 21 episodes of Gotham, 2 episodes of Flash Forward. I loved that show. Another great sci-fi show.
That was an NBC show that also was canceled before its time.
Yeah, one of those cancel too soon shows. He was in 2 episodes of Fringe.
Yes.
And he was in 7 episodes of Invasion, which was a short-lived show that I watched about like reptilian aliens that took over people's bodies.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, so he definitely has been in a lot of genre television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's basically our episode. You know, aside from the weird stuff that happened at the project, I thought it was a pretty good episode overall. I'm really curious. I highly doubt the whole Back to the Future strategy that Ben employed is going to work.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually also...
I don't think it's going to work.
That's also a reference to the original Quantum Leap, when the Leap Back.
Right.
Or the Leap Home. No, the Leap Back. Yeah, the Leap Back.
It was the Leap Back. And
Season 4.
We're actually really close to when we get to cover that episode.
Yes, we only have 2 episodes before we get there.
And in that, they sent their letter to... Sam sent it to his dad's attorney. Because we were in 1945, I think, in that episode.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And so he's like, oh, well, my dad had this great attorney. I'll send it to him with like $20, which is, you know, a lot of money back then, right?
Right.
And that'll work. I don't feel like giving this letter to Sarah is going to work.
No, I doubt it.
I feel like he could have found a better way to send this letter. Now, it was 17 years. First of all, I feel like he should have been way more specific than to say sometime after May 1st, 1970.
Right.
You have 18 months to play with.
Mm-hmm.
You should have picked a specific date you want this letter sent.
Right.
Sometime after this could mean 2 years later, and guess what? You're too late.
Right. Yeah.
But also, like, is Sarah going to remember this letter for 17 years, never mention it to Nadia, and then mail it? Or is she going to forget about it? Or is she going to mention it to Nadia, and Nadia's going to say, what the hell are you talking about? And they open the letter.
Right.
They open the letter together, and they say, who's Hannah?
Right.
Who's Josh?
Right.
And who's Ben?
Right.
And they throw it away.
Yeah. Or, I mean, Sarah could just as easily die in the next 17 years.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen to her.
Yeah, because we didn't look that up.
Right.
But on the other hand, it could work.
Right.
For all we know, we're gonna meet Sarah in a future episode in the 70s. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know for sure. But
perhaps.
But I don't think it's gonna work.
No,
I don't think
probably
it's
not. So I think we have like 2 episodes left.
In total?
Yeah.
We have 3.
3 episodes left.
But over the next 2 weeks.
Right, yeah. Yep.
So, next week is The Outsider.
Ah, yes.
I believe I'm quoting that right. And that is the episode directed by Deborah Pratt. So I'm really excited to see that one. We haven't...
Yep.
It's not in our inbox just yet. I'm sure it'll be available to us soon. And I cannot wait to watch that one. Super excited to see where they go with that. I don't have the synopsis in front of me.
I think it has something to do with the journalist.
It had something to do with journalism, and he's in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And just the sound of the description reminded me of Roberto.
Yeah, okay.
And when he was going to, like, investigate UFOs or whatever, aliens.
Yep.
It didn't say what they're investigating, but they're investigating something in the 80s. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. And then the next week we have our final 2 episodes. The episode titles were released. The descriptions were released yesterday, and I don't have it in front of me because I didn't grab that.
The world is on fire or something like that, and then I forgot what the other one was, but yeah.
Yeah, so both of those are going to air back to back. They're calling it a 2-part finale, but it's not really a 2-part episode. They're just 2 separate episodes that are being aired back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way the time slot worked out with La Brea, which is in the 9 p.m. time slot, has its series finale next week at 9, which opens that time slot up. So February 20th, we're on at 9 and 10.
Yep.
With episodes 212 and 213. And reading those episode descriptions, we know Hannah's coming back in episode 12.
You'd assume she would also be in the finale.
I'm assuming, yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tell us if we're going to get her in episode 11 or not.
Yeah, I
don't know if she's going to appear in episode 11, but if she does, we're going to get for the first time meet Hannah out of order. Because episode 11's in the 80s, and in episode 12, we're back in the 70s.
Gotcha.
So either she's not going to be in it, or we're going to meet her out of order, which I think would be something cool to explore.
Yeah.
And we're in the 70s for both episodes 12 and 13.
Yep.
So we're definitely going to deal with the Hannah of it all.
Yes, and find out what the heck is going on with this whole Gideon subplot.
Hopefully, it all comes together and we get a conclusion story on what's going on in the present day and how it relates to Hannah and Jeffrey and what was the point of this whole season arc.
Yeah, I hope we definitely get an answer for that.
I hope we get an answer to that because we still don't know if there's going to be a season 3.
Right, yes.
And there's a chance that this will act as a series finale. And if it doesn't all come together, that's going to be horrifically sad.
Yes. We definitely don't want to end on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have any other thoughts about this episode?
I think we've been going on for quite a long time now.
Yes, and if you're listening and you're still here, thanks for the patience.
Yes. So, here's what I have to ask. 3 more episodes. Please, please, please watch live if you at all possibly can. If you have access to the NBC live feed through cable or over the air, just turn the television on. You don't even have to watch it. Just turn it on. Leave it on. If you're watching through Peacock, On Demand, DVR, if at all possible, you want to watch during the first 24 hours. Okay, because the live ratings are the ones considered the most important. Then they have +1, +3, +5, and +7. And that's number of days after the broadcast. And the earlier you are in that, the more weight it carries. So watch within the first 24 hours, if at all possible. Leave it on all week on a loop if you can. Just do whatever you can to help these ratings. Spread the word. Let people know that the show is on so they can tune in. Because there definitely are still people out there who lost track of this series. Casual viewers. And, we do have that letter writing campaign going. Save Quantum Leap. It can't hurt. It can't hurt to throw out a hashtag Save Quantum Leap, to send a letter or a postcard or an email or a voicemail to NBC and just say, hey, we really want more. We really want more time travel adventures, and we'd like the show to continue. And hopefully, very, very hopefully, we get a season 3 renewal.
All right. We would like to hear from you. Stacie can be reached at...
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads, and over at the Owl's Place forums under the username at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can join one of my Corn Productions Facebook pages. You can follow me on Twitter at Corn Productions. You can buy something from the Corn Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a way to support content creators such as ourselves. You can join the Corn Productions membership for 99 cents a month, which is a new way to support our channel. And, of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions, signing off.